All right, I know a common request of me is to provide tools or show tools and tutorials of things that aren't as difficult as Colab. I know Colab can be pretty intense or scary to some people. So that I would say we look at a tool that doesn't require any Colab. It's a web-based tool. You can do a ton of stuff with it, and it's pretty cool. It's called Pixray. And if you've been anywhere on the internet, you've probably seen a lot of the text-to-image tools that have existed in the past year and have been becoming like more and more popular. And Pixray essentially is a really great web tool to do that, just that. Um, it's created by a guy by the name of Tom White. Tom has done a bunch of other cool machine learning projects. I definitely recommend you check out his work. And unlike maybe some other tools that begin with the word or the letter W and end with the letter O, there's some real tech bona fides, and I think he does a good job of sort of like calling out, who helped him work on things and that sort of thing. Pixray is also up on GitHub. I'll post a link to that as well if you are interested in getting more in behind the code. But I think what's nice here is he's made a really nice web interface to work with this. So if you go to pixray.gob.io, you'll see there's a bunch of options here. I'm only going to go through one of them, but I think there's a ton of other things you can play with. And once you get a hold of sort of how the interface works and maybe some tips and tricks that I'll provide, you'll get a good sense of how it all works. So at the top here is text to image. This is the pretty like basic, probably standardized sort of text to image thing. I believe it uses VQGAN under the hood. I can confirm that later. There is a cool text to pixel version. So if you're interested in pixel art, there's a nice tool here that will help sort of like make pixel art. It's not as simple as just like doing a small version and scaling it up. It does some nice stuff on color palettes and other things, so definitely check that out. If you're into Tezos or NFTs, you can do stuff with that. Pixray Tyler, which I'm definitely interested in checking out. I haven't really played with this too much, but maybe if you're into gaming engines, you'll find this pretty cool. And there's a more custom one here called Pixray Generic. So let's get started by just looking at text to image. The other ones have pretty similar interfaces with maybe a couple different tweaks here or there. So the key to remember here is that this uses a model called Clip, and what Clip allows you to do is you feed it a piece of text, a sentence, phrases, other things, and it can then use that. You can start by generating an image and then using that text prompt to sort of guide it more in the direction that you want it to be in. So it'll probably like try to take the phrase you gave it and it'll try to like move the image more in that direction. So what you'll see here is the prompt. Prompts are basically what the text is. So here it says description what to draw. We will be spending a lot of time looking at this. We'll start with some really simple examples and look at some more wilder examples. There's a section here for quality. Quality is basically how like high quality do you want the image to be. I think it's nice that they sort of describe as between draft and best. I assume if you do best, it's going to take quite a while. And if draft should be fairly quickly. So this is sort of speed versus quality. So what you might want to do is set your image to draft quality until you sort of figure out the prompt. And then you'll want to turn the quality up to be a little bit higher once you've sort of got an image you like or the direction of an image you like. And then you can spend a little bit more time optimizing it. And lastly, which I think is sort of a nice little feature here, is you can set your dimensions. So you can do widescreen, which is what's here. You can do square, you can do portrait. So let's leave this at widescreen for now, and let's pick a prompt. So I'll talk a little bit more about prompts in just a minute, but for now, be playful here, like kind of try some different things. I'm going to try a really basic one that I always do, which is the dog chased the ball in the park. I'm going to leave my quality for draft so we can just do some quick iterations and see what happens. And I will do widescreen. So let's go ahead and hit submit. And I'm going to wait here just a minute to see how long this takes. I actually don't know how long these queues are. One of the challenges with a tool like this is, it's going to a web server somewhere that is running a GPU. GPUs are quite expensive, so if there's lots of people using this tool at once, there's probably a long wait time on this. So I'm going to pause the recording. I'm just going to keep track of how long this took. Okay, it says I'm 14th in the queue, so it might take me a while here. This is the downside of a tool like Pixray that uses a web interface. If you start to find that you're really enjoying this process, you might want to move to a Colab notebook, which will probably be a little bit faster, but have its own sort of limitations. So let's just pause the video, and when this is done, we'll come back and check it out. Okay, I've waited, looks like about 11 minutes, and I'm second in the queue. So this is not a fast process. In fact, I would probably recommend that if you are at all interested in doing this, that you try this out once or twice, and then if you want to do more, I might recommend moving to my Colab, or not my Colab, other people's Collabs notebooks. The reason I say my is I do have a whole class on getting comfortable and using Colab. So if you want to check that out, that might be your next step if you find this process enjoyable. Let's see, maybe in just a minute, we'll get a new image and we'll get to check it out. Any second now. Okay, we're just going to keep talking while this happens. So obviously, as Pixray gets more and more popular, this is going to become a longer and longer queue. I don't have that much faith in myself or my own internet powers through YouTube, but maybe this own tutorial will also bump up the queue. So again, expect to wait a little bit of time on these. So I'm going to do one more. Once this one generates, what I'll do is, in fact, if this doesn't run in the next minute or two, I'll jump in ahead and start to show you what we describe as text engineering or prompt engineering or any number of word hacks types of things. And the idea here is that this particular prompt can be optimized by adding additional phrases or terms or other ideas into it. It's important to think a little bit about how this model has been trained. So if you've never done machine learning before, the way this works is that the people who made the CLIP model, which is the text generation model, trained it on a bunch of different, they scraped the entire internet with text and image phrases. So what that means is that they found a lot of phrases that tend to generate certain styles of images. And that could be that they went up on DeviantArt and they found a bunch of DeviantArt that used a similar phrasing, or they went through 3D rendering websites and found a bunch of 3D rendering that had certain phrases in it. So what people have learned over the past year of sort of using this process is they've learned that there's ways to sort of hack certain styles into your images. And you know what, this thing still isn't running, so I'm going to go ahead and just start to show that. We'll come back in a second and see if there's anything here. So people have sort of started to find like hacks that you can put into your phrase, into your prompt phrase, to generate different styles. And there's a couple different web pages that I definitely recommend checking out, so you can sort of start to play with these a little bit more. The first is this really wonderful, I believe, by Kingdom Acrylic. They went through and generated a ton of images using sort of a different image. So down the column is mushroom, spaceship, volcano, Victorian house on a hill, and along the left you could see are like these little text hacks. And if you know anything about 3D rendering, you'll know like Unreal Engine is a 3D engine for rendering. You'll see stuff like concept art or photo illustration. Flickr is going to be more like photos that come from Flickr. Behance is obviously a website where people put up styles of things and that sort of thing. So you can kind of see that across these, like especially like if you do ambient occlusion will give you sort of a black and white image. Not entirely black and white, but a little bit. Things like 8K 3D will give you a little bit of this sort of glowy, sort of 3D rendering style. Pencil sketch will obviously look sort of black and white pencil-y. So the cool thing about this is that you can start to use these little phrases to generate like little style changes to your image. So if you add low poly, you'll get this sort of 3D low poly look. This is how people are able to generate like really interesting images by sort of hacking with these phrases a little bit. So this is one I highly recommend. I'll post a link to it in the YouTube description. This is one by Kingdom Acrylic. Let's come back here and see if our image uploaded. It did. Okay, so interesting. So I gave it the phrase or prompt of the dog chased the ball in the park. And it looks like all I really got, you can sort of scrub through it and see how it changed over time. All I really got was the last part, a ball in the park. So I never got my dog. I don't get any chasing. And if I were to run this multiple times, I might get my dog. I might get different images. Kind of the interesting part of this is you will get different like results every time you run this. And you'll see that my quality pretty small. I can go ahead and click this to download my image. If I come up here and hit Show Finder, there's my image. I believe if you turn the quality up to best or better, you'll get a slightly better image. So let's try one of these word hacks, and then I'll run it, and then we'll go through a couple other things. So let's see. Let's change this a little bit to say my dog in the park. And let's maybe even get a little bit more specific. Let's say my dog in Brooklyn Bridge Park. And let's go ahead and pick one of our little hacks here. So let's say, since I have sort of a photorealistic style, I maybe want to pick something that's a little bit photorealistic. Or I don't know, maybe let's try watercolor. That might be kind of interesting. We'll see if it gets like sort of a watercolor painting of my dog in the park. So you can kind of do a couple different things. You can just do watercolor here. I've seen some people do stuff like this. It doesn't really matter because it kind of breaks up all the phrases and words into different things anyway. So let's do this, and we're going to change our quality to best. I'll leave widescreen at this. Let's just submit it, and then I'll go through a couple other notebooks or a couple other web pages that you can check out to see even more options or things to play with as you play with this more. So go ahead and hit submit, and we'll see. This will probably take another 20 minutes or so. So I might pause the video once we're done looking at other text engineering, prompt engineering hacks, and then we'll come back to this. All right, so I showed this one. There is a ton of information here, a ton of styles. There's some cool stuff. Like you can really see that, things like movie poster or pop art really do, change a lot of how the image is generated. Made of cheese. That's a really interesting one. Made of flowers. So there's lots of cool stuff to play with here, which is why, if you don't want to wait 20 minutes per image, you might want to look at something like Colab or other tools that can do this a little bit faster without waiting in a queue. So this is one from Kingdom Acrylic to check out. There are two other ones that I found recently from an artist on Twitter by the name of Remy Durant, and he has, sorry, they. I shouldn't assume anyone's gender or pronoun usage. So Remy has two others here, two other like URLs that I think are really interesting. One that looks at art movements and styles. So if you want to apply this, looking at abstract expressionism, action painting, how different sort of phrases, like you could again apply this to sort of say, I want a building in Art Deco style, or Art Nouveau style, those sort of things. So here again are some really cool things. Just look at and see sort of how these styles get applied to images. And then along here, you'll also see that I believe that this is using the same model, but this is run 3 different times. So each time you'll get slightly different images when you run this. There's another one here. Again, remember that Clip has sort of scoured the internet for artists. So in addition to styles like, say, watercolor or 8K render, or actual art movements, it has also learned individual artists. And this URL has a bunch of sort of famous or artists who have a lot of work on the internet. And you can actually see that Clip, and as a part of Clip, has learned how to sort of illustrate these artist styles. And I have to say, I'm not familiar with a lot of these artists, so I have to go and sort of check to see what that really means. But you can see, here's sort of a pointillism Monet style painting, right? So here's a bunch of Monet style work. There's also artists in here like Wes Wilson. So you get something that's a little bit more psychedelic. If you have a favorite artist who there's a lot of work on the internet of, you could also try that and see if you get anything else. So it might also be like, just check around and be like, oh, I really like this particular style. Like, what artist is used? Walter Crane. So you might then want to say, dog in park or angel in front of building, Walter Crane. And that might then also sort of push your image in the style of the direction you're looking for. And this is why it's so fascinating to watch people utilize these tools, because there are all of these little text prompts that you can play with to really generate a ton of different material. And it offers you kind of an endless playground, which is what makes it really cool, but it also can be really challenging to sort of figure out like, okay, where do I start? How do I find these things? And learning these little tricks, or like the ways to sort of manipulate an image in a certain direction, can do a lot for your work, or can do a lot to sort of help you move in the right direction. So this looks like Miro. Yep, so there's a Miro, Joe Schuster. So there's a ton of options here. So again, I'll provide all the links for these notebooks. Sorry, I keep saying notebooks, but I really mean URLs. So I'll provide a bunch of these URLs in the YouTube description. So you can go ahead and take a look at them and maybe play around with them and see what you get. It's this one. Okay, cool. So let's see where I am in the queue here. Okay, so I'm 6 in the queue. So I'm going to stop this video and we'll come back and we'll just see if using watercolor really did change my result. Okay, so now we're running our prediction here and let's see what our image looks like. I feel like I need drumroll sound effects or something. And I should also mention that with the quality set to best, it's probably going to take a little bit longer to do the prediction than it would if it was set to draft. I think my image might also go a bit larger. Let's see. So there's our first pass. So it's going to do a couple iterations to sort of optimize this image. But you can already see that I'm getting like a way more watercolory style of image. So again, our text prompt here does do a lot, in adding styles. It really will help to optimize the image to what I would think would be, the direction you want it to look. And I didn't look to see what time I started this run, but it seems a little bit shorter. It's probably like 8 or 9 minutes. So again, there's a lot of, getting in the queue is based on how many other people are using it, whether they're using draft quality, best quality, those sort of things. So, just be aware that you might wait 5 minutes, you might wait 20 minutes. It's a little bit of a mix or match. So I would definitely only recommend using this as like a short term, just sort of play with things, see if you like it. Maybe you want to generate one image and just give it a call it a day. But, you might not want to spend all day playing with this because there's definitely faster options available to you. And we're already seeing that image started as very park-like. And now I've got my dog here in the center. I think this does, I don't know if anyone else has been to Brooklyn Bridge Park, but this does sort of look like, the city in the background, Brooklyn, the bridges sort of being set up here. So this is actually pretty impressive that it's able to generate such an interesting image that can capture so much information using something as simple as this text prompt. And that's really what's cool about these tools, is that once you learn sort of the optimization techniques under the hood, you can really do a lot with a little. And, again, once you learn Colab, which you should, I highly recommend that for anyone interested in doing more of this work. You can also then, run multiple versions of these at any time, create 10 or 20 different versions at once and download them and then pick from your favorite. So there's a lot of opportunity here to really play with this and produce really interesting images using just text, which is, really powerful. And if you looked at any of my other tutorials, you know that sometimes it can take forever to train a model or do that sort of thing. So there's a lot of power in these text to image tools. See how much longer. I don't know how many iterations this thing runs for. My guess is that because it's set to best, it's going to run, more iterations than it would previously or would otherwise if it were set to draft. So let's run a little bit longer. And I do think there's some other nice things about Pixray, this particular UI, and in addition to this, is you can sort of scrub through and see how it changes over time, which is pretty nice. You don't always get that with other tools. So you can sort of see it starts in this very muddy sort of park and maybe gravel or park and stone look. And then as you scroll through, see our dog starts to stand out a little bit more. And we definitely start to get more of the city in the background, which is what I was sort of thinking about or maybe considering when I was doing Brooklyn Bridge Park. Okay, this is going to keep running for a while, so I'm not going to force people to stick around and watch the rest of this tutorial. When this is finished, I will be able to download the image and I'll be able to look at it there. So this is Pixray. Like I mentioned, there is also a GitHub version if you want to run it on your local computer. It does require a pretty powerful GPU, and you should probably be on Linux and other stuff like that. So for those of you just dipping your toes in the water, this is a nice place to start. But I hope it interests you and gets you excited about other text-to-image tools. I do have some additional tutorials on other text-to-image tools available here. And I believe in probably next week or the week after, I'll also be doing some video text-to-image tools through my experimental film with machine learning class, which I'm slowly uploading all the videos from those classes that I finished up last winter, or right before the new year. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you make a cool image, let me know. And I hope this gets you excited about text-to-image tools.